A barcode looks like a private language. Thin black lines, a number, a promise that this object belongs somewhere. On a supermarket shelf, hundreds of these codes stand shoulder to shoulder, dressed as rivals and speaking in different voices. One offers comfort, another sells health, a third remembers childhood. Yet their corporate family names may lead upward into the same quiet rooms. That discovery can feel like a warning hidden in plain sight, but it also leads to a harder question. Who really owns the food brands we think we choose? The answer is not a single secret ruler of every major food brand. The real structure is both less theatrical and more revealing. It is a web of parent companies, subsidiaries, acquisitions, retailers, suppliers, distributors, and investors whose names rarely appear on the front of a package. The labels compete for your attention. Ownership records tell a different story about scale, strategy, and the power behind a familiar shelf. The mystery begins with the gap between a brand and a company. A brand is a story built for shoppers. A color, a mascot, a memory, a promise of taste. A parent company is something colder. It is a legal structure, often designed to hold factories, trademarks, recipes, contracts, and dozens of separate labels. The relationship is usually not hidden in a locked vault. It is disclosed in annual reports, investor filings, acquisition notices, and the small print few shoppers ever read. But disclosure is not the same as visibility. A company can make its ownership public and still remain almost invisible to the person choosing between two boxes in a crowded aisle. That is why the shelf can feel like a theater of endless choice. The actors wear different costumes, but some report to the same corporate headquarters. This does not mean every competing product is secretly controlled by one company. It means the food system is layered, and its layers are easy to miss. One parent may own several brands in a single category. Another may control a snack label, a coffee business, a pet food division, and a nutrition company at once. The result is not one empire with a single throne. It is a landscape of empires, overlapping in the same store. Behind the bright packages stands a long history of mergers. A local recipe becomes a regional favorite. A regional favorite becomes a national brand. Then an acquisition turns a familiar name into one asset inside a global portfolio. The brand survives because consumers know it. The ownership changes because investors, executives, and boards see value in scale. Every acquisition adds not only a product, but a trademark, a distribution network, supplier relationships, manufacturing capacity, and a place in shoppers' memory. For a parent company, a portfolio can spread risk across categories and countries. For a shopper, it can make corporate connections harder to recognize. Sometimes the old name remains untouched. That is precisely what makes the transformation so difficult to notice. The logo stays, the recipe may stay, the commercial voice stays warm. Yet the decision-making structure above may have moved across continents. This is where the phrase secret ownership becomes misleading. Most large transactions leave public traces, regulatory reviews, investor disclosures, shareholder votes, press statements, and financial reporting. The system is not necessarily concealed. It is simply written in documents that are less memorable than a chocolate bar or a breakfast jingle. And still, public does not mean simple. A corporation may own a brand directly, through a subsidiary, through a joint venture, or through a licensed arrangement that changes from one country to another. The same name can appear on different products in different markets, sometimes under different corporate arrangements. Then there are retailers. A supermarket does not merely display the products of powerful manufacturers. It may also sell its own private label versions, often produced by outside manufacturers and placed beside national brands. The apparent battlefield is therefore crowded with different kinds of power: brand owners, store chains, logistics companies, agricultural suppliers, and financial institutions. That complexity matters because who owns the brand? is not always the same question as who controls the price or who controls the shelf. Retailers negotiate, governments regulate, producers supply, and consumers can shift demand. Power moves through the chain rather than sitting in one office. The answer changes from product to product, country to country, and contract to contract. Yet consolidation is real. In several agricultural, processing, and retail markets, a small number of large firms can hold a significant share of activity, giving mergers and bargaining power serious public importance. That is why competition authorities examine food sector deals. They are not searching for occult symbols in corporate archives. They are looking for evidence of market power, reduced rivalry, higher prices, or weakened bargaining positions. The investigation itself reveals something important. Large food ownership is not beyond scrutiny. A modern acquisition can become a public event, studied by regulators and challenged by critics before it is completed. But another layer makes the picture stranger. Public companies often have large institutional investors among their shareholders. The same investment manager may hold minority stakes in many companies across the economy, including firms that compete on the same shelf. That fact can sound like proof of a hidden command center. It is not. A minority investment is not automatically operational control, and common ownership does not by itself prove a coordinated plan between competing brands. Still, it raises a legitimate question about influence, voting power, incentives, and how concentrated financial ownership can become. The evidence must be handled carefully. Ownership percentages, voting rights, board representation, and actual managerial control are not interchangeable terms. The more honest documentary is not satisfied with a dramatic answer. It follows the evidence until the evidence stops. Some parent companies are public. Their annual reports identify their businesses, their risks, and their governance structures. Others are private or family-owned. Their portfolios may be visible to shoppers, while their financial disclosures are far more limited. Even packaging can blur the map. A brand may be owned by one company, manufactured by another, and distributed through a third. That contrast is one reason the food map looks confusing. There is no single master list capable explaining every shelf in every country. There are instead thousands of corporate records, trademarks, licensing agreements, supply contracts, and acquisitions constantly being revised. The invisible architect is not one company. It is the system that separates what we see from what we are asked to understand. We see flavors, slogans, packaging, and personal habits. The system sees brands, margins, factories, data, distribution routes, intellectual property, and market share. That difference changes the meaning of choice. Choice can still be real. Different companies do compete. Smaller producers, private labels, cooperatives, and independent brands remain part of the market. But choice is not always as broad as the shelf suggests. When many labels belong to fewer parent companies, the visual variety can be larger than the number of corporate decision-makers behind it. The story becomes sharper when we stop asking who secretly owns everything. A better question is this: how many layers of ownership stand between a shopper and the people who decide where a brand goes next? The answer will never fit on one label. It sits in a maze of public filings, corporate histories, regulatory decisions, and relationships that change whenever another deal is approved. The mystery is not that one unseen hand owns every meal. The mystery is how easily an ordinary aisle can hide the machinery that turns familiar food into global power.